whispers in the deep dark night. Shadows dancing.
Welcome to the AI Riff, where we cut through the noise and break down the top AI stories of the week with real talk and real relevance. No hype, no fluff, just a vendor-agnostic take on what's actually shaping your world today. Whether you're in tech, lending, or just trying to make sense of the headlines, we're here to separate the wheat from the chaff and the facts from the fiction. Now let's get this started with your hosts, Mario Diabenedetto, Rob Katz, and me, Kyle Myers. We hope you enjoy this episode of the AI Riff. Picture this. Your browser calls at 1 a.m. An AI voice assistant answers. A second bot crunches the competitor's LE in real time, and backstage, an observability agent diagnoses every hiccup across the stack before compliance even wakes up. Are we looking at mortgage's first end-to-end AI supply chain, or the starting gun for the next price war?
On this show, we connect the dots. UWM's Mia and Leo, Better.com hiring the FHFA's former AI chief to weaponize Tin Man, and CoreLogic pocketing $115 million to unleash Ollie. The question driving this episode: who stitches these layers together first, and who gets stitched up? Stick around and find out.
Welcome to the MidRiff, guys.
Hello.
Why is it the
I left
MidRiff?
Well, because we're midweek and we're trying to be consistent with once a week, and well, we just find too much news and too many things to talk about.
Exactly.
Mario, give us a rundown.
This was news that just couldn't wait and really deserved its own show. So just like Rob teased there, we're going to combine some things that have happened over the past month, one of which really triggered it kind of first to be front and center. So it's been a little while, but United Wholesale Mortgage had already put out there that they had two different AIs, Mia and Leo, a voice assistant and an LE analyzer. Then recently, this past week, Better.com hires the ex-chief of the FHFA to come in and commercialize what they have called Tin Man, which is, they say, AI-infused front-end stack. And then CoreLogic, not totally mortgage-centric, but CoreLogic raises $115 million and by the way, that puts them at $1 billion valuation as a company, for Ollie, an AI that can actually do conversational observability. And the reason we got the MidRiff is like, should people be worried?
Well, should we? I'm going to go to Rob first and ask, is this something is this just a logical progression for the mortgage industry? Do we just at an accelerated pace maybe for some of these, some of the people that are in the mind that maybe AI is still new and it's too new to implement? And are we overreacting to what is a logical, normal next step for this?
Yeah, it's a good question. What I like about what the folks are doing with some of this technology is they're going after a fairly limited scope, right? So what these guys aren't announcing is, hey, we have a completely virtual loan officer. You don't need loan officers anymore. You don't need back office anymore. You don't need compliance. They're not saying that. What they've done is they've taken very specific segments of the mortgage flow and have applied AI in a way that I think can probably be pretty well controlled. So let's take, for example, the tool where a loan officer can grab a loan estimate from one of their competitors, drag and drop it into this tool, and it goes line by line to assess where are there opportunities where I can come out with a better LE and potentially win the business away from a borrower. It is such a precise, limited scope of what you're asking the tool to do, and something that can happen with structured data in a way where the likelihood of hallucination is lower, the precision is higher. So, excuse me, what I like about it is just that. It is a clearly defined, let's go target this thing. One of the other tools that UWM has is go find the borrowers that are ready for refinance. Such an easy query to look through and check what today's rates are and stuff like that. Again, a very, very limited scope. So we talked about in the opening, who's going to stitch this together and make it all make sense? Is this a path to one day having a completely virtual AI driven loan officer, I think it's a step in that direction, right? Is that a today thing? No. It's probably going to happen sooner than later if people can figure out how to stitch this the right way where they're constraining the amount of errors that can take place. Does that make sense to you guys?
Makes
Yeah,
total sense.
absolutely. And I want to, for now, I want to focus on the positive, like you just did, right? These are what appear to be successful implementations of AI. Let's just check that box,
Yeah.
right? Successful implementations of AI. And that is a step in the right direction. So we should all appreciate that. I'm going to stake out the ground that says, should small and mid-sized lenders be worried? Not in the near term.
And you probably caught me waving to my son who just left through the door. So I apologize for that interruption. But this is the riff, Raff. I'm the rat. I'm the Raff. So I'm not the riff. So
Can
but
I counter one of the things that I said?
Sure.
Yes.
So speak out of the other side of your mouth.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I was looking at the article that you shared out that has this quote from somebody at Better that literally says our loan officers have compressed a staggering 80% of their back office costs using our platform. So that's where I take a deep breath and go, really? Like, I like the technology that they're talking about. I think it's exciting. I think it's cool. I think it's reduce errors, better customer experience, all that other stuff. 80% of the back office costs?
Yeah.
Well, isn't
yeah,
the
that seems a lot.
people and the majority, if you reduce it by 80%, like this tool wasn't designed to replace it doesn't have enough functionality to replace 80% of the back office costs. So what I don't like about this is, Mario, to your point, it's an AI success that's now being exaggerated. I harp back to our last episode where we're talking about, what was that, the customer support company Klarna Klarna, that claim that they're saving $10 million and fired 700 people. Like, don't make the stupid bold statement that's not true. Just take the win for the win, right?
Exactly.
Don't get Mario on Klarna again.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it when it's that number, just as soon as you said that, and I'd read that and I thought, yeah, that is a little 80%. Like, first of all, and I've harped on this on previous episodes, we need to understand what people are doing, first of all. And I would say 80% of the companies don't have a very good map of everybody's job responsibilities and what they're doing throughout the day in this process and getting things done. Now, there's some aspects where people are very dialed into their process, and it's all documented, and it's very rigorous, and it's tested. I don't know, Rob, you've been in the mortgage industry a while. So have you, Mario. That's not everybody. In fact, that's not the majority. Most people don't have that documented. So when you say 80% of the workforce, it'll do the job of that. Well, how do you even know what 80% of the workforce is doing?
Right.
Like, you don't know until you replace them, like Klarna, and you go, oh man, I need them back, because that intellectual property that they just took with them that you didn't realize they were doing to get around the things that were broken that they didn't talk about because they didn't want to be a squeaky wheel. You've now just exacerbated it, and those things come to the surface, and you go, oh boy, I need my people back. So
yeah, let's drop some data that kind of goes to this. We're going, a little deep on the 80% thing, but and these are 2023, so they're not totally up to date because you can't get up to date numbers. But top 25 performing retail lenders averaged $6,900 per loan to originate. Industry average at that point was $11,600, 68% higher. And the bottom 25%, the low volume lenders, were $16,500, 139% higher. So when Better says that they're taking 80% out, who's 80%? Are they taking 80% out of, and UWM's not retail, but are they taking 80% out of UWM's already super refined low cost that they've got because they're a monster? Or are they taking 80% out of the low volume lenders, right? You definitely have to be suspect about that. Here's the other
I would
thing.
think they cherry picked. I would think they cherry picked the lowest one.
I agree.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense that.
Yeah, and here's the reason why I don't think people have to worry, at least not yet. all three of us have been involved in the building of a loan origination system. Let's not talk about CRM. Let's not talk about point of sale. Let's not talk about servicing system. Just focus on loan origination system.
Yep.
The number of things that have to be replaced by AI is not a weekend, project. And I'll just tell you, other than what Better's showing, which is more significant, these other things aren't that complex. They're complex to get to production. Give them all the credit in the world. It's hard to get these things to production, but there's no moat on what they did. There's nothing so complicated to what they did that you can't go out and replicate this yourself if you had the time and money, right?
Right.
These were the easy picking things to do, right? I think
Right.
Better is at least seems to have something deeper than that, although they really don't share a lot of details.
No.
And Better has been doing this for a long time. I mean, they've been technology oriented, process oriented, like process of technology replacing people. They've been doing this for years. I mean, I think they were primarily focused in the refi market, and then now they're not so hyper focused on it, but their experience in refining their process has got them to the point where they're ready to accept AI much quicker, I think, than most of the general mortgage companies out there, because they're hyper focused on that efficiency and that process, and they're rigid about it. So at least that's the word on the street, so to speak, that they are that hyper focused and diligent about efficiency.
So you see these things getting announced, right? UWM a month ago or whatever it was, the Better stuff just coming out. You're a mid-size or small lender. What do you do? How should you react to this today? What should be your takeaway if you took the time and you poured through these articles and you went through the cross references and you did the backstory stuff like we've done with a little help from AI? What should you be doing here? And should you worry that somebody is going to stitch all this together? Or worse, should you worry nobody's going to stitch this all together and you're going to have 57 million AIs out there to choose from, and you have to figure out which is the right thing to
That's
do
a real
each step
Yeah.
of the way?
It's a great question. I think number one is, if you weren't open-minded and exploring these as possible tools to improve your business, become open-minded to start exploring these opportunities, for improving your business. Number two is, and I said this on a prior podcast too, is if you're a small, mid-sized lender, don't plan on building this stuff in-house, right? UWM is a huge organization, right? Better is a big company. Talk to your vendors, make contact to all the existing vendors you have, find out what their AI strategy is, what their AI roadmap is, figure out what pieces they're going to bring to the table, and start thinking about, okay, if XYZ is going to give me this thing and ABC is going to be this, how do I start to stitch that together, right? Stitching together offerings from other providers is easier to do than building something from scratch yourself, most of the time. So it is carve out the time to have the discussions with your vendors, and probably designate somebody in-house to be your AI czar, your person who's going to take the lead on reading the articles, watching this podcast, staying on top of what's happening in the news, and then on a weekly basis or monthly basis, report back to your C-suite of what's out there so that you stay focused on doing loans. You have somebody in-house who's paying attention to this stuff. You're leaning on your vendors like you already lean on your vendors to provide the technology there. And then just be open to, okay, it's not going to be perfect and we got to stitch a bunch of stuff together, but what's my ROI on making any yes decision on moving down the path of AI? That's
so that's a great point, Rob. And the first thing that comes to my mind is if I'm in the position I'm in currently, we would look at the roadmap of a vendor and see if it aligns with what our goals are and strategic goals as a company. And sometimes they would say, well, our roadmap is this, and you don't really see kind of the high points of your own strategic desires. Like, I think a long time ago, I'm just going to equate it to eClose, right? It took forever for eClose, and it's still not 100%. I mean, it's still not like a standard. Hybrid eClose is like, it's pretty standard. You get your docs delivered through doc, but you're still going to have to go in and wet sign a bunch of stuff, or eNotary, and everyone's setting up their own eVaults and doing all their notes and sharing. It was supposed to be perfect, but it wasn't. This is seems a little different. Should I be concerned as a as a lender if my vendors are all saying, well, that's on our 2026 roadmap?
So,
Or is that a cause for, hey guys, that needs to be on your Q4 2025 roadmap? What are you doing?
and here's my thought. The big vendors in the space that are doing well today are going to buy this, right? They probably won't just do the innovation, and whereas a UWM has every incentive to invest in this and to make this innovative, it's harder for a technology company to necessarily have that focus and not lose track of their core software focus. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the big vendors are going to buy somebody who starts, as a pop-up, and then they're going to fold it in. And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with waiting for a big vendor to do that, but you have to know they're going to be laggards, right? Because they have to wait for it to get built by somebody else. They have to acquire it, and then they have to somehow make it feel like it's part of their actual existing system. And so if you don't mind waiting, like you waited for eClose, right? Life didn't end, right?
Yeah, I
You're, you,
suppose, but we still haven't gotten it.
yeah, if you're,
I mean, it's there, but it's not there.
but
It's not very, it's clunky.
nobody went out of business because they didn't have eClose.
You're right.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if eClose is a good analogy for AI stuff because the barrier for eClose is the acceptance by the secondary market and the folks buying the loans, right? So
Mhm.
AI is potentially different because it could be all shielded behind the scenes. You're still delivering a product at the end of the day that's going to be bought in the secondary market. So I think the amount of time you need to put into, if this tool was available today, how would it impact my business today? And what would I do different? And planning for it to be there is going to take a while for most lenders to figure out anyways. So, it's already June 19th. We're through the halfway mark of the year, right? So if a vendor's saying, hey, Q1 of 2026, that's not a lifetime. I'd rather have them get it right and spend the time to figure it out than grab something that comes out fast that's not really proven, that has hallucinations and errors, that puts my business at risk. Look, if this was any other industry, I mean, we're talking about mortgage, right? If we're talking about other industries that don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars at every transaction at risk, yeah, you can move a little bit faster, but we got to be prudent in mortgage banking because there's just so much money at stake.
Yeah,
Well,
the compliance officers definitely do rule the. They don't necessarily rule the roost. Production kind of does, but it all depends on the situation. But you're right, Rob. This business has traditionally been, let's make sure it works before we go hog wild and deploy it. And I understand that the vendors need a little lead time because maybe their platforms or the way they've created their software wasn't prepared for AI. Shame on them a little bit. But then again, AI has been threatening to do what they're doing now for what, over 10 years, and they finally put the pieces together, and now it's finally a threat of disruption, if not a disruption already. So I guess if you're behind the eight ball, you're probably not alone.
so kind of bringing it full circle, because there's a part of me that says, well, gee, maybe the AI Riff should have, a package or two every week and say, hey, there's this new AI thing and it's successful over here. But then I face the reality and we're trying to cut through the hype. There's too much hype.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
you can't get people to give you a straight-faced answer on what stuff is actually doing because everybody's hyping what they've got so much that you don't even know what's real, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like you're just waiting for somebody to actually have business results that are dramatically different than somebody else that they can point back and say, "Oh, well, that's because we actually had, a good piece of AI that did something special."
That's believable, by the way. 80% back office cost reduction. You believe it, right? So
Yeah. Exactly.
But then if you don't believe it and you say, I'll wait and see, you're done. Like if you get that far behind and enough people believe the 80% and go that direction, it's going to take you it's going to take you a while to get up to speed and against your competitors, and you're going to lose volume. I'm not, maybe being done is probably an overstatement, but you're going to be coming from behind, and it's a tough road. You'd have to leapfrog them with something that's the next, and the next is fully AI generated mortgages. And where you just go on your phone and say, I'm buying a house, I need 350,000, and you wait, it spins for a second or two and says, okay, the money will be in your bank, and we gotta still have a 3-day, a 8-day CD thing, which I don't know if that's going to stick around. If we can close loans in less than 8 days, is that going to stick around? I mean, I don't know. So that's the next step above not the next step. That's the step way ahead of us. And if you can't do that, then you're going to be so far behind. You're going to lose business. You're going to become less relevant in the marketplace. This is make or break decisions right now for a lot of lenders.
Yeah, I'm totally on the other side of that equation.
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
I saw somebody post on somebody was doing some hype around something on LinkedIn or whatever. And somebody said, yeah, that's funny. Been hearing that for 20 years. I'm going out of business because I'm not adopting technology fast enough. Blah, blah, blah. Still here. Ha ha. And it's the truth, right? Is AI different? Sure. AI is like the internet. People didn't shut down their lending operation because they weren't the fastest people onto the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of on Mario's camp too, because what we've talked about in prior episodes, it's the software side of AI is changing so fast, right? Google puts Perplexity out of business, not technically yet, but they're on their way to be out because they replicate what's over there. I don't invest in the software companies that are leveraging AI yet because it's all moving too fast. You don't know where direction it's going to go in and so forth. And so I, I I think your statement, Kyle, is a year premature, maybe 2 years premature. I think there will be a time in 3 years. Yeah, I think there's a time in the future when there's enough proven stuff out there that if you don't jump on it, you're gonna run out of fingers.
Mario, that's not 7 years.
Use
Come
your
on.
toes. Are your shoes off? You can use your toes.
Yeah.
We're gonna run out of time. There's gonna be a time when AI is stable enough and you jump on it and you can use it. I don't think that's now. I think if I'm a lender, being prudent and cautious in my AI related decisions is not going to put me out of business.
Okay, you're pulling me over to the side. I'm not gonna say I'm 100% wrong, but I think I'm probably a little bit Chicken Little. But I will say that it's all depends on how you deploy the AI, and I think every lender is going to deploy it in a different way, and that may follow their strategic plan for the niche or the environment that they're in. And so, whatever makes you distinguish yourself within your marketplace, that's where your AI is going to help you the most. And I can't define that for someone. The market, some lender that does $1 billion a year in North Dakota is a little bit different than a lender doing $20 billion a year in Southern California. They're going to have different strategic objectives, and I think AI is going to be used differently at different times for each one of those lenders. And nothing's wrong. It's just that's the way they need to grow.
Go ahead, Rob.
I say we kind of opened the show talking about stitching pieces together. I think that's the point you're making, Kyle, is there's going to be different offerings from different vendors. Everybody runs their business slightly differently. Everyone has different business pains. Find the niche deliverable that solves your niche problem that you have and start stitching those pieces together. And that's a more successful strategy than either waiting till there's a big bang, which may never happen because Mario's running out of fingers, or getting on board with somebody who comes to market too soon. So that's a logical way to do it. Talk to your vendors, see what they're doing, align their solution with your needs. And if their solution doesn't align with your need, then don't buy it.
And I'm going to just add one piece to that. This is the last. I'm not making any more infinity symbols or anything else. But the one thing I'm going to add to that is don't think about Big Bang. Like Big Bang is like, okay, yeah, I have this crazy thing that AI does. Think about I create AI it significantly improves my operation in a way that makes me more competitive than you are, right? I'm more efficient or whatever it is, right? How long does that last? How long do I get the benefit of that AI?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unless I'm one of the big guys who's keeping it to myself anyway, right? Which
Right.
you can't replicate. How long do I get? 3 months? Do I get 6 months? Like and that comes back to this moat idea. Like a lot of what people are doing doesn't have a moat. There's nothing that prevents somebody else from going out and doing what they're doing In some
Right.
cases, data is going to be the gateway, right? You don't have the data to do it, or you don't have the money, but there's not a lot of moats here. And so if you stitch stuff together, like you're saying, Rob, you're probably not going to be far behind the people who are trying to blaze the trails. That's my 2 cents.
And I would equate it to the RPA. I mean, we had an initiative that hit right about the time, thankfully, right as the COVID hit, and we had no idea how that was going to affect our industry. In fact, we thought the industry was going to get destroyed because of all the regulations around it, and we wouldn't be able to deliver loans. And we do it. Next thing you know, it's the busiest we've ever been because the rates being down low, and we leaned on bots. We leaned on Softomotive, which was purchased by Microsoft, but we used that product, and we used Power Automate, and that actually helped us to ebb the in and out, ebb and flow of personnel coming in and going. It didn't do everything. It wasn't faster necessarily than a human, but I could give it the job and it would go do it, and I could be doing something else. So I can double my time of each of the employees if a bot was doing that. So I see this like AI, where those robotic processes are going to go away now, or if they haven't already technically gone away, because we can do more with the with logical expression and different code that can replace the bots. So that's great. The APIs have gotten even better and better with the vendors we're with. So awesome. But when you start looking at people trying to get an ROI on AI, we don't have that big, like we're not faced with this big mountain of work in front of us right now. Mortgage industry is hoping for that big mountain of work to get through. It's kind of some green shoots. This year has been at least not horrible. But we're looking for that big mountain. And sometimes that big mountain moves the software industry to adapt to it, where that big 2020, 2021 helped the software industry kind of move to, we got to get better, faster, more efficient. We got to do things more with less people, and not necessarily more with less people, more with the same amount of people we have. Well, I don't see that event on the horizon that's driving the mortgage industry to adapt AI, other than the opposite, that we want to reduce staff. We want to reduce the overhead, like you mentioned, Mario, get it below $6,000 a loan, get it down closer to the, $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000 a loan, and then they cut it again and get it to a point where we're so efficient that our cost to produce is realistic in the frame of people want, companies like having their business. I mean, right now, it costs so much to do. You have to make the margins. Ultimately, the customer pays. The margins you have to make to compensate for the $6,000 to $9,000 to $10,000. What was the one? $16,000.
Yeah.
Just think of the margins they have to hit to be profitable. Yeah. That's all coming out of the consumer's pocket, and you can sugarcoat it, and you could say, well, no, but they're still getting the service and they're getting this. Yeah. But I think if you would have asked them, if I could have had the same rate for $5,000 less, I think I would have done that. And that's the whole point, I think, right now of AI, is just reducing that expense side economics, getting the expense side down.
So I agree. I'd like to throw something out controversial for this podcast, because it's
awesome.
It's the opposite of AI. Is there's plenty of new tech that's out there that's not AI based that can really help drive down the cost for lenders. Right, the majority of lenders out there are on 30-year-old legacy antiquated LOSs and POSs that don't talk to each other. That pain and burden that they have to go through to make stuff work. Like if you're thinking, I got to jump in this AI game, there's stable, newer tech that's not AI driven that can still help your business to bring those costs down. That's point one. And point two is half the cost is the commission to a loan officer. So
yeah,
if you were going to look at doing AI, coming back to the comment that the Better said, I would try to find, how do we use and leverage AI or new technology to make it so that I can find a way to bring my cost down from the sales perspective, because that's half the cost, right? Mm-hmm. You can move the dial all you want on the operating side of it, but half of your cost is loan officer commission.
So
And some have done it with lead generation, like with
Sure.
the companies that do a lot of lead generation. They offer their loan officers a bunch of leads, and they can reduce the cost because they're getting fed their business. They don't have to go out and market. Well, if you can have AI do all the marketing for you, which I think we've read a few articles where AI is doing a lot of that marketing, and I think that's a great opportunity to increase the revenue, the overall revenue of the production team, and then but not have that straight line. Well, it's going to be $10,000 per loan or $8,000 per loan. You could actually go out there and say, we don't have to pay. I know this is heresy, and all the loan officers that I have are really good friends are going to go, what are you talking about? Stop talking about this. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to take the cut. I mean, if you're getting fed leads, you're going to get paid less. It's just the way it works. You were a lead generation Rolodex that could get me business, and I'm going to hire the best because they got a big Rolodex. That's great. That still works for now. But if you don't have a Rolodex and we're just feeding you leads and you're closing it, you're more of a concierge than a loan officer. You're helping people get the loans done, but you're not. You shouldn't be paid that bulk of the margin.
So bottom line, wrapping this up, tell me if you agree. These
I
three
agree.
moves, right? UWM, Better, CoreLogic. It's the same message, right? We're racing forward. There are some nice solutions. It's really, and maybe they get woven together. Maybe they're all piecemeal and there's a million more like this, but it's up to you, the listener, the watcher, to do your own research, to make sure you know what's going to bring you the ROI, and to stitch together the right set of things. And you really shouldn't be freaking out because, again, these things are going to become, if they're good and they're useful, they're going to become commonplace.
I agree. And I just want for clarification, because we've all said it quickly, CoreLogic's different than
Yes.
CoreLogic. So it's a totally different company based out of the UK, I believe. So yes. Yeah, but
So
I agree, Mario. I'm with you.
So, and I want to thank our sponsors, UWM, Google, Microsoft.
Yeah. Yeah. He's joking. He's joking.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
get
no, if
paid
they want
by
to spend their
anybody.
money,
We-
that's okay.
How about our sponsors, Kyle, Rob, and Mario?
Yeah.
There you go.
With their
Better,
time.
better.
But no, thank you for listening to this. This has been a good conversation. I'm surely a little bit more informed and less like Chicken Little because of the end of it. But I will say thank you for joining. This is our MidRiff. We're calling this. This is the middle of the week for our AI Riff. So with that, I'm Kyle Myers.
I'm Rob Katz.
And I'm Mario De Benedetto.
And this has been the MidRiff on the AI Riff. Thanks, everybody.
Wires hum like whispers in the deep dark night. Shadows dancing strange under neon light. Digits spinning fast like a gambler's head. The clock chimes change, it's the new command. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Binary prophets riding fading streams. Data flows like rivers fueling all our dreams. Simple or savvy, it's all the same path. Under skies of innovation, we redraw the map. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Set the rhythm to the beat of change we sing. Every click and hum a key that rings. A revolution, quiet, but it's vast. Building empires where echoes of futures cast. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of code like the endless ocean.